Hi, my name is Steven and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about how cooking has taught me about life. Learning life from the comfort of my own kitchen. Cooking really serves as a metaphor for life's intricacies. And when you're going through the cooking process, it mirrors life's process as well. Lessons that I learned during cooking has also taught me about life's lessons. The global idea is that continuous improvement is the way to go when it comes to life. And it's a self-improvement skill set that has major dividends the longer you're around. And cooking is something that I do on a daily basis, so I get that 1% better each and every day, which is like life. Just like a head chef needs to practice their skill set meticulously on a day-to-day basis. When I start to dig into it, my kitchen proficiency mirrors my life proficiency. And this analogy really took me a long time to fully understand the impacts. These lessons in cooking not only help me to appreciate my meals more, but also life as well. So join me as I show you how cooking has taught me about life. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about my background, what cooking has taught me, and my general thoughts. And before we start, be sure to like, subscribe, comment, share with your friends, hit that notification bell if you'd like this content. And here we go. I started cooking in my late teens as a way to diversify what my parents gave me for food. Up until that time, my mom didn't want me in the kitchen at all. She wanted to prepare my foods for me. But I started to grow tired of eating the same things over and over, and I wanted to improve my cooking skills. So I started to cook simple meals in an effort to improve my cooking skills and see what I can make. It was very rough in the beginning and the food didn't taste quite right and I didn't know how to heat food properly. But over time, as I gained more experience and specifically moved out of my parents' house, my cooking game improved. I stuck to the simple foods, but I refined my process over and over 1% better each and every day. As I started to gain more skills and improve my cooking process, I started to learn faster and faster. Things that normally took me tens of meals to figure out now only takes me a few meals. And it gave me this positive feedback loop in which I could take the lessons that I learned and apply it to new foods that I never cooked before. This gave me even more incentives to save money and cook at home instead of eating out all the time. Now when I realize this process, it applies to my life skills as well. I realized that the lessons that I learned during cooking applies to my life skills. And the same kind of learning philosophy applies in every aspect of your life. Because at the end of the day, the process to learn something and to keep continuously improving at it doesn't change. So now that I look back on it, cooking was instrumental in helping me through personal growth and development. So here's what cooking has taught me about life. Number 1, planning ahead. Planning ahead is critical in the kitchen because it makes sure all your ingredients are prepared well in advance. So that when you start cooking, you have everything that you need and you're not scrambling for something else. This means that when you're in the process of cooking, that you can focus on it completely and not figuring out what ingredients goes in it. Planning essentially makes sure that this cooking process goes as smoothly as possible. Having this attention to detail helps in making the food taste delicious on the other end. And just like in the kitchen, planning well in life pays a lot of dividends in the end, especially when you're navigating life's challenges and struggles. And having things planned out in advance makes sure that you can also absorb any errors or mistakes along the way. Because life can throw you challenges and planning ahead helps you at least have a guide to what you're going to be facing. Ultimately, planning helps you to be more organized in general throughout life. When I look at a new recipe, I do a lot of work up front, looking at YouTube videos and different types of recipe for the same meal. I then create a master list of all the things that I want to buy based on my taste preferences. And also it helps me to understand what kind of complexity that I'm getting myself into. Because sometimes a dish might have multiple complex steps that I just don't want to end up doing. And during this process, I identify the pain points of that recipe and see whether or not I'm even in the mood to execute on that meal. I might want to find something simpler to make if I don't want to spend the time and effort cooking. So planning for me is really the key in the kitchen and in life. Because everything can be much harder if you don't have anything to guide you along the journey of life. So cooking in general has taught me a lot about planning for life. Number 2, patience is key. The virtue of patience is exemplified when it comes to cooking. Because all these recipes aren't instant meals, they all take time and care. And this patience can teach us a lot about life goals as well. In the kitchen, patience is key when you're trying to heat up something or you're waiting for something to cook through. And if you rush that process, you might get something that's raw or unpalatable for you. And ultimately, it compromises the dish and its quality that you present out into the world. Similarly, during life, patience is needed when you're in that growth process and you're learning something new for the first time. Or you're waiting on your lifelong goals to be complete. You gotta have that patience to wait it out sometimes. When we're in the kitchen, we have to learn about the gradual process some food takes to get to their ultimate deliciousness. And you have to have that patience to trust in the process and have confidence that after waiting a while, your food is gonna come out great. And it can ultimately teach us about patience, how that can affect our lives for the positive. The biggest lesson that unlocked my cooking for me is learning how heat transfer works and how slow the process is for some foods. Things you cook on the outside is not the same that you're cooking on the inside, because it takes time for heat to transfer through foods, and that time isn't equal when you're talking about the outside or the inside. And you have to patiently wait for all the food to cook thoroughly inside and out. Like food, there's certain things in life that just can't be rushed. Schools, careers, and relationships are some examples of things that you might need to be patient on. And these things can build and take years of continuous improvement to get to where you want to be. So when I wait for something that I really want, I keep the long game in mind and patiently wait for it. If it's something that's really worth it in my life, I will dedicate the patience for it. Just like cooking a steak or simmering a soup, I take the time and effort and patience for life goals. And be mindful of the fact that certain things in life are just going to take time, years, maybe even decades to accomplish. Number 3, adaptability matters. When we're cooking in the kitchen, adaptivity is key to making sure that meal turns out great. Because sometimes we need to change things on the fly to make the taste work. And this in a microcosm is like the dynamic classroom of life. Because in the process of cooking, you might have missing ingredients or you need to make alterations to the recipe. Learning and adapting on the fly and making that meal taste great in the end is a great skill to have. Because not only does it salvage the dish, it can make something taste great where otherwise it wouldn't have. Because twists and turns, especially in life, can throw you curveballs as well. And we need to have the ability to turn, adapt, and face the challenges and overcome them. Because when we adapt, we can be more resilient to challenges that we might face. Because not just about being able to do something different, it's also about you adapting to the situation around you. And the more you're able to adapt, the better your life well-being will be. In cooking, I often seek feedback whenever possible, tasting as I go. And if it doesn't taste quite right, I try to correct it with seasoning and taste along the way afterwards. Likewise, I keep an eye on the stove and the temperature it has so that I make sure the food doesn't burn, changing the temperature along the way as well. And if I do burn something or make something unpalatable, I just find something else to eat that day. Life is all about adaptivity. If something isn't working, it's up to you to adapt to it. You want to pivot to something that works for you instead of hitting your head against the wall over and over. And during this period, you might be able to adapt new strategies and be more efficient. Because I've always had a mindset of getting better and better each and every day, and always trying to seek a more efficient and better way of doing something. So whether you're cooking or living life, you need a sprinkle of adaptivity to make your life taste a little bit better. Number 4, creativity enhances experience. The process of cooking is deeply creative at its core, because when you're cooking a recipe, it's only a blueprint. You're the one that applies the ingredients. And your creativity in those ingredients can shape whatever meal you're making. And it can transform a regular recipe into something extraordinary for you. This is especially true when you're experimenting with different kinds of flavors to enhance a certain recipe. And this modification truly makes it your own and no one else's. This not only enhances the dining experience, but also enhances your future meals as well. It's really a metaphor for life and calling out innovation and thinking outside the box. Much like a chef infusing creativity into a dish, life can be creative to your heart's content. Certainly there are blueprints and guides on how life should be, but by no means is it a set path for you. And just like cooking, by adding a couple of flavors here and there, you can change your life dramatically by the choices that you make. Think of cooking like life, like an empty canvas waiting for it to be created. And the willingness to go out there, be creative with what our solutions are to various problems in life. Because this kind of thinking can not only enrich our lives, but create another set of pathways that we never thought existed. During the cooking process, when things taste great, it's awesome. But when they don't, just try again. You can constantly be creative in a dish and try new flavors based on whatever your creativity holds. Use your experience to draw on what flavors might taste like in a certain dish and you go from there. In life, this really mirrors my experience as well. I like to really think about unique ways to do certain things in life. My YouTube series on being an extreme cheapskate is a perfect example of that. It's a great opportunity to showcase how I can get really creative in my money-saving ways. You don't always need to buy a new thing for a specific one-time use. You can always repurpose things for other uses. There are many different ways to look at an object and be creative about that certain thing. So just like in cooking and life, being creative can help you leaps and bounds when it comes to overall life satisfaction. You just have more tools in the toolbox to go forth and do life things. Here are my general thoughts on how cooking has taught me about life. I really enjoy cooking because it gives me a solid goal each and every day where I can actually complete. And I can see if I'm successful or not right away. I don't need to wait too long for it. It's also a time where I can be really deliberate in the process and focus on one thing and get that done. Because cooking helps me to focus on that one thing in my life, blocking out all the other stressors I might have. I can count on that time to be at peace to make my one meal. and it brings me a lot of relaxation and creativity during the cooking process. Lastly, I think cooking when done right can be a costly and time-consuming activity, just like life. What I mean by that is when you get better at cooking, you naturally want better ingredients and better cooking hardware. This means that you might spend a lot of time getting the best equipment and foods around you. And just like in life, once you reach a certain level, you want bigger and better things. And it's harder and harder for you to take pleasure in the simple foods that you started out making in the first place. But the key is to acknowledge that and rein that in whenever possible, focusing on the goal in mind. Because ultimately, good food doesn't have to cost a lot of money. And likewise, you can also have a happy life without spending too much money. So those are some of the things that cooking has taught me about life. I have gained a lot of special skill sets during the cooking process that also applies in life as well. And these skill sets are not just isolated to cooking, it has long-term positive aspects to life as well. Skills like adaptivity, patience, and planning are critical life skills, especially if you really want to live a balanced life. I started out cooking because I didn't want to starve or waste money on takeout all the time. But over time, I learned that it just wasn't about cooking, it was teaching me about life. Using the lessons I learned in the kitchen ultimately helped me to become a better person. So go out there and learn some cooking skills. It might be more than just a delicious meal at the end. So thank you for watching. Please leave me a comment down below on whether or not you like to cook and has it enhanced your life. And I'll see you next time.